There's something deeply unsettling about the woods at night. No matter how familiar the trail is during the day, once the sun goes down, the trees look different. The shadows seem to stretch, the air feels heavier, and every sound echoes longer than it should. Some say the woods are alive, not just with animals, but with things that aren't supposed to exist. Beings that can take our shape, use our voices, and trick us into stepping just a little too far into the dark. Tonight, we'll explore 3 terrifying true shapeshifter stories: the deer that spoke, the echoing steps, and the shape in the woods. If you think the forest is safe, these stories will change your mind. Before we get into tonight's story, make sure you like this video and subscribe if you enjoy true scary stories. It helps the channel out more than you know, and lets me keep bringing you 3 new horror every week. Now, settle in, turn off the lights, and get ready, because this story might make you think twice before you ever go camping again. It was supposed to be just another camping trip. The first night went by smoothly. We set up camp near a small clearing, cooked sausages over the fire, and laughed at dumb jokes until we passed out. Nothing unusual. The only strange thing I noticed was how silent it was after midnight. No wind. No crickets, no owls, just the crackle of our dying fire. I shrugged it off, telling myself maybe the animals just didn't come around this part of the woods. But the second night is when the trip took a turn. But the longer I looked, the less natural it seemed. Deer don't just stand in one place for minutes without moving. And its eyes didn't reflect like normal animal eyes. They looked almost wet, almost human. Kevin clapped his hands and yelled to scare it off, but it didn't even flinch. It just stared, chest rising and falling slowly. After a while, Marcus muttered, "Forget it. If it wants to watch, let it watch." We laughed it off and went back to our drinks, but every few minutes I found myself glancing back into the trees. The deer hadn't moved. That night, as we zipped into our tents, I kept hearing twigs snap in the woods. Not loud, not aggressive, just faint crunches like something circling the clearing. I told myself it was raccoons. Still, I barely slept. The third day felt heavier somehow. Even the sunlight looked dimmer through the canopy. We hiked during the morning, but Marcus kept saying he felt like we were being followed. At one point, Kevin swore he heard footsteps just behind us, but when we turned around, nothing was there except trees. By the time we got back to camp, I was trying to push the paranoia out of my head. We made dinner, tried to joke like normal, but the forest felt tense, charged, like the whole place was holding its breath. And then, right as the sun went down, the deer came back. Same exact spot, same exact posture, standing at the edge of the clearing like it had been waiting for us all day. "Hell no," Kevin muttered, chucking a rock toward it. The stone hit the ground a few feet from the deer's hooves. It didn't move, didn't blink, didn't even twitch. That was when I noticed something worse: its mouth. Deer don't hold their mouths slightly open like that. Its jaw hung slack, lips curled just enough that I could see pale teeth inside. Too many teeth. The fire popped behind me, and for a moment I wanted to just back away into the safety of camp, pretend it wasn't there. But before I could, the deer moved. Not naturally. Its neck twitched sideways, almost a full 90 degrees, then snapped back upright. Marcus cursed under his breath. "It's sick," he whispered. That's when it spoke. In Kevin's exact voice, the deer said, "Come here." I froze. My stomach dropped like I just stepped off a cliff. The deer's mouth didn't even move in sync with the words. The sound just came out, wet and broken, echoing in the trees. Kevin stumbled backward. "What the fee?" The deer twitched again, and this time it took one stiff step closer to the clearing. Its antlers scraped against branches, sending dry leaves raining down. Then, in my voice, it repeated, "Come here." None of us moved. None of us breathed. Marcus finally snapped, grabbing a burning stick from the fire and hurling it toward the tree line. Sparks burst into the dark. The deer bolted, but not like a normal animal. Its legs bent wrong, too long, too sharp. It didn't run away so much as it snapped into the woods, each movement jerky and unnatural, disappearing into the dark faster than our eyes could follow. That night, none of us slept. Every snap of a twig outside the tent set my heart racing. At some point, I swear I heard whispering, my own voice just outside the fabric repeating, "Come here, come here, come here." When morning finally came, we didn't even bother making breakfast. We tore down the tents, packed up, and practically ran back to the trailhead. But the strangest part? As we reached the gravel lot where our car was parked, I looked back one last time. And there it was, at the edge of the woods, standing perfectly still. The deer, its head tilted unnaturally, watching us leave. I never went camping again after that. If you ever go camping deep in the woods, remember this. Not every animal that watches you from the tree line is really an animal. Sometimes the woods learn your voice. Sometimes they wait until you're alone, tired, and desperate, and then they call you closer. And if you ever hear yourself speaking from the dark, whatever you do, don't go. You're still awake. That means you're one of us now. There are more stories waiting, darker, stranger, worse. So like and subscribe if you're ready. And if you aren't, don't be surprised when the next story finds you anyway. It was the middle of spring when 3 friends of mine decided to spend the weekend hiking and camping in the Smoky Mountains. We weren't hardcore outdoorsmen, but we'd gone on enough trips together to feel comfortable on the trails. We packed light, carried tents, and set out just as the sun rose on a Friday morning. The forest was beautiful at that time of year. Damp soil, bird song overhead, and that misty air that made the trees feel endless. For the first few hours, nothing unusual happened. We passed other hikers, crossed a few small streams, and joked about how one of us would probably get eaten by a bear. Typical camping trip energy. But around noon, the traffic of people thinned out. By mid-afternoon, we hadn't seen another soul in hours. It was just us, the trail and miles of thick, quiet forest. That was when the footsteps started. We didn't notice them at first. Hiking boots hitting dirt can blend together. But after a while, I realized something was off. Every time our group came to a stop, to drink water or to catch our breath, I'd hear one extra step. Just one, like someone stopped half a second after we did. At first, I brushed it off as paranoia. Maybe I was hearing echoes or branches snapping in the wind. But the longer I paid attention, the more deliberate it sounded. It wasn't random noise. It was footsteps, matching ours always a fraction too late. By the time we reached our first campsite that evening, I was unsettled, but didn't want to freak anyone else out. We set up our tents, built a small fire, and tried to enjoy the night. But even while we sat in the circle of firelight, I kept hearing faint crunches in the underbrush, always just outside of sight, always in rhythm with us. That night I barely slept. Every time I drifted off, I was jolted awake by the sound of pacing. Slow, deliberate pacing around our tents. I told myself it had to be an animal, but no animal walks in circles like that, dragging its steps out to sound like boots on dirt. The next morning, I asked if anyone else had heard it. One of my friends shrugged it off, but the other went pale. He said he'd woken up to what sounded like whispering outside his tent. Not words he could make out, just low, broken sounds, like someone mumbling into the ground. We almost turned back right then, but decided we were just spooking ourselves. We pushed on deeper into the woods. That day, the footsteps were undeniable. We'd walk in silence for minutes at a time, and I'd count them in my head. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then the late one. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then 5. At one point, Kevin, the most skeptical of us, suddenly spun around and shouted, "Who's there?" The forest went dead silent. Even the birds stopped. Nothing moved. Nothing answered. By the time we set up camp the second night, the mood had changed. We were jumpy, constantly glancing into the trees. When darkness fell, the footsteps came back. Louder this time, pacing, stopping when we stopped. Starting again when we whispered nervously to each other. Around midnight, I made the mistake of peeking out of my tent. The fire had burned down to embers. The forest was pitch black, but between the trees, maybe 30 feet away, I saw something pale move. Not a full figure, just the outline of something tall, wrong, swaying slightly. I ducked back inside, heart pounding. Minutes later, the footsteps started circling again. Closer this time. Crunch, crunch, crunch. And then, the worst sound of all, my own footsteps. I don't know how else to describe it. I heard myself walking outside, the exact rhythm, the exact weight, my boots hitting dirt. Except I was inside the tent, paralyzed, barely breathing. The others heard it too. I could tell from the way they went silent, from the way the air seemed to hold. None of us said a word. Eventually the sound faded. The woods went quiet again. Somehow we fell into a restless sleep. The next morning, we packed up without even talking about it. We just wanted to get out. The hike back felt endless, but the entire time, I could still hear it, that extra step, always one behind us. When we finally reached the trailhead, exhausted and shaken, we thought it was over. But as I opened the car door, I heard it again. One last crunch of a boot on gravel. One last step that didn't belong to any of us. We didn't look back. Sometimes the scariest thing in the woods isn't a monster you can see. It's the thing you can't, the sound that shouldn't exist, the extra presence that doesn't belong. If you ever find yourself hiking and hear one more step than there should be, don't turn around. Don't try to find it, just keep walking and hope it doesn't follow you home. And if you made it this far, remember to like the video and subscribe for more true scary stories. It helps more than you know, and there are plenty more stories just like this waiting to be told. Now, let me tell you about something that still unsettles me whenever I pass through the woods near my hometown. This wasn't a ghost sighting, and it wasn't an animal. It was something far stranger, because sometimes the scariest things you encounter in the forest aren't hiding in the shadows. They're standing perfectly still, waiting for you to notice. This is the story of the shape in the woods. I was 19 years old when this happened, camping with 3 friends in a forest just outside a small rural town. It wasn't the first time we had gone camping, but it was the first time we chose to stay in a place that locals told us to avoid. They said hunters went missing there. They said hikers came back confused, swearing the trees had moved overnight. But being cocky college kids, we laughed it off. We wanted a thrill, and the stories sounded like nothing more than local superstition. The first night was fine, quiet, uneventful. The forest seemed normal, almost boring. But the second night was different. Around midnight, I left the tent to use the bathroom in the woods. I didn't bring a flashlight, just my phone, but the battery was nearly dead. The moon was bright enough that I thought I'd be okay. As I wandered a little further from the campsite, I heard something strange. It wasn't footsteps, exactly. It was the sound of movement, but too heavy for an animal. I froze, holding my breath. That's when I saw it. Between 2 trees, not 10 yards ahead of me, was a figure. It looked like a man, tall and thin, with its shoulders hunched forward. At first, I thought it was just another camper. But then I realized something was wrong. It was standing perfectly still, too still. And its face, I couldn't see features, not even the pale shimmer of skin in the moonlight. Just an empty oval of darkness. I backed up, my heart pounding. The moment I shifted my weight on the leaves, the figure moved too, mirroring me. 1 step back, 1 step forward. I whispered, "Hello?" My voice barely making a sound. No reply, just silence. I told myself it was a trick of the shadows, a tree stump, anything. I turned to head back toward camp, and when I looked over my shoulder, it was closer. Maybe 5 yards now. The way it closed, the distance, didn't make sense. I hadn't seen it move. When I got back to the fire, my friends saw how pale I was. I told them someone was out there watching us. They laughed at first, but then we all heard the crunch of leaves. Slow, deliberate footsteps circling our camp. Every time we shined the flashlight in the direction of the sound, there was nothing there. At one point, my friend Jason shouted into the dark, "We know you're there." That was when the woods went completely silent. Not even the crickets made a sound. And then we saw it, standing just beyond the ring of firelight. A tall, dark shape, its limbs too long, its body too still, just watching us. Jason grabbed a stick and waved it like a weapon, but the thing didn't move, didn't flinch, just stared. Finally, we couldn't take it anymore. We packed up the essentials and left the fire burning, planning to hike back to the car, but the trail felt wrong. Every landmark we passed seemed slightly different, like the trees had shifted. The path stretched on longer than it should have, and the whole time, behind us, we could hear it. The crunch of footsteps, the crack of branches. Never too close, but never far. After nearly an hour, exhausted and terrified, we stumbled back into the clearing where we had started. Our campfire was still burning. We had been walking in circles, and standing on the opposite side of the flames was the figure. Only now it was closer than ever, close enough to see its face, or rather, the lack of one. Just a blank surface where features should be. And as we stared, paralyzed, its head tilted, mimicking us, like it was studying. That was the last straw. We ran. I don't even remember how we found the car. All I know is that when we drove off, Jason swore he saw something in the rearview mirror, running alongside us through the trees, keeping up even as we sped down the dirt road. We never went back to those woods. Even now, years later, I get chills when I think about it. Because whatever that thing was, it wasn't human. It wasn't an animal. It was something else. Something that wanted us to know we didn't belong there. If you ever go camping in unfamiliar woods and hear footsteps that don't match your own, don't look back. Don't call out. Just leave. Because once you see the shape in the woods, it won't stop watching you. And that concludes tonight's stories. 3 unsettling reminders that the woods are never truly empty. Whether it's a deer that speaks with a voice it shouldn't have, footsteps that follow you long after you've stopped walking, or a shifting figure that wears your shape like a mask, the forest has ways of reminding us that we are not alone. We think of nature as peaceful, quiet, and untouched. But sometimes what lurks just beyond the tree line is older than us, hungrier than us, and wearing a face it was never meant to. Thanks for listening. If this story disturbed you, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss another terrifying tale. And remember, sometimes the scariest things aren't hiding in the dark. They're standing right where you can see them.